mshikamano hatima yetu, tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika, chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
Most welcome to Humans TV Africa. This is Humans TV Africa. And of course, my name is Katum Mukasa. I'm a Ghanaian lawyer interested in issues, human rights, issues, development, economics, politics, and of course, progress of the humankind. We use this network. Humans TV Africa is a registered organization, charity NGO, working in different parts of the world, and of course having physical offices in Uganda, studios in Kenya, studios in Zambia, Zimbabwe. We have studios in Nigeria and Ghana. We have studios in the UK. We have studios in the US. And our role is to empower each other, is to inspire each other, is to motivate each other, and is to educate each other. We learn from you, you learn from us. I want to encourage you to please subscribe to our Facebook page, but also our YouTube channel, which is Humans TV Africa. Please look for it. Just go look for it, Humans TV Africa, and press that subscription button so you can be able to watch all our shows as they come. Remember, we have over 400 shows today waiting for you to watch. All of them very educative, very, very informative, and very inspirational. I want to encourage you to also write to us at info@humanstvrafrica.com. Also, our WhatsApp message, our WhatsApp number is +254 747356767. Our communication officer will be able to respond to you. Remember, we are an NGO. We are not here to make profits. We are here to give a service. Therefore, we need volunteers. We need people who want to work with us. We need partners who want to support us in one way or another. We need people who can be able to work with us, and we open up studios in their countries. We look forward to opening up studios in Singapore, studios in China, studios in India, studios in all those countries in Asia, in various countries in Europe, and of course in more states in the USA. We look forward to opening up more studios and working, because Humans TV Africa is a global media network. We are not country specific. We are registered as a charity, yes, but we are not country specific. We work globally. Now, today, I'm talking about Africa, because all of us are Africans. All of us are Africans. Today, the topic is Africa. We are looking at the origins and the meaning. Origin and meaning of Africa. Where does Africa come from? I know that there are many graduates, I call them pseudo-intellectuals, who don't even know where the name Africa comes from, but they just sing, I'm an African, I'm an African. They don't know even where the name Africa comes from. They have no bearing, they have no understanding of their origins. They are simply calling themselves Africans. Now, Africa as a continent simply existed yesterday as a continent. But people in a geographical place called Africa, in a geographical location called Africa, were there before the name Africa was invented. They were black people. They were Caucasians. They were Asians. I'm very careful not to say white people because they are not there. That's another creation. They were Asians. They were Caucasians. They were black people. They were brown people. And people of different skin color. And these people lived in different geographical locations. There are those who lived in the present-day Africa. It was never called Africa. There are those who lived in the present-day Asia. It was never called Asia. There are those who lived in the present-day Europe. It was never Europe. There are those who lived in the present-day USA, Latin America. It was never that. The names Europe, Africa, Asia came recently. They were not there. So the question is, who brought these names? How did they come to be Asians? How did black people come to be known as Africa? Who gave them the name Africa? Who gave the name Europeans to Europeans? Were they known as Europeans? Never. Were they known as Africans? Never. Were they known as Asians? Never. It came just as recent that now blocks were being identified and say, okay, I think people here are a bit different from people here. So what do? We gave them an identity. For us, we are Europeans. Where does the word Europe come from? That's not my analysis for today. Where does the word Asia come from? That's not my analysis today. My analysis today is Africa. Now, Africa was simply a name coined and given to people living in that geographical location. Who gave this name to these people? How did it come about? It's a controversy. Many scholars don't agree on exactly who gave Africans the name Africa. Many scholars have read books, have read theories. There are so many theories. In my book, The God Business, I basically explain these theories. The weather theory, there are so many theories I explain in my book. So there's no genuinely single theory to explain why the name Africa. Even the name Al-Qublan, that's my book. Thank you, Dennis, for sharing. Always spot on. My book is on Amazon. It's called The God Business. In that book, I explain to you the origin, the meanings of Africa. But now, this is a TV, and I'm going to explain this one much better and much more very briefly. Now, what do we mean when we say Africa? Remember, the word has been existing for millions of years. There's been a geographical space called the Earth. The Earth has been there. But when did the people come to be people? We traced humanity 300,000 years ago. 300,000 years ago, hominids came to be. Homo sapiens, thinking men, came to be. Where did the first thinking men come from? They came from East Africa. Go read your history, but also go read your science, archaeology. The first thinking men, Homo sapiens, came from East Africa. Does it mean there were no other creatures? Possibly, yes, they were there. But the Homo sapiens, the thinking creatures, came from somewhere in East Africa and migrated and moved upwards, eastwards, southwards. They end up in Asia, they end up in present-day Europe, they end up elsewhere, and then we see human beings coming in play. Human beings that think. But the origin was Africa. That's why we say all of us are African, because our motherland, our birthplace is Africa. Now, when we say that all of us come from Africa, it's true that Homo sapiens, the hominids came from Africa. The Neanderthals were there in Europe, in other parts of the world. They were Neanderthals. But were there humans? Were there thinking humans? No. It's another history. Now, Africa, where does the name come from? Their theories. They have told you about Leo Africanus. Yet Leo actually was a black man. They have talked about Scipio Africanus, the Roman general. And they said, look, the Roman general defeated Carthage. Carthage is Tunisia in quotes. The Carthaginians, remember Hannibal, General Hannibal, another one of the famous Carthaginian. Carthage, when you say Carthage, that is Tunisia of ancient time. Tunisians were more of mixture people. They were never called Tunisians, they were Carthaginians, were a mixture of Arabs, Africans, and Caucasians. The Carthaginians, in a place called Tunisia today. Now, when Hannibal was defeated, again, when Africanus, not actually, it was not called Africanus, it was called Scipio. When General Scipio, a Roman general, came and defeated the Carthaginians, they gave him a name, Africanus. He was given a name, Africanus, after defeating Carthaginians who were in the present day Tunisia, for example. And Tunisia was under the Phoenicians, if you remember that history. Tunisia today, Carthage, or Carthaginians were under the Phoenicians. Now, the Phoenicians, the Romans, and the Arabs all had different ways to describe the land where they found black people. All of them had different ways to describe the land where they found black people. Do you know the meaning of the word Sudan? Black people. The meaning of Ethiopia, the land of burnt-skinned people. When the Arabs came to Ethiopia, when the Europeans came to Ethiopia, call them the Caucasians, because they're not Europeans then, they're Caucasians. When they came to Ethiopia, they found a people who were like them, but not like them. Who were like black people, but not black people. They have long hair, they are more brown, they are not Caucasians, they are not black. So they said, these are people of the burnt skin. These people have a burnt skin. They call them Ethiopians. People of the burnt skin. Look at the etymology of the word Ethiopia. Now, in brief, the Phoenicians had their own way to describe the people that are black in color, living in a sunny area. For example, the Romans used Africa, not Africa, Africa to mean a sunny place. Yet the Greek used Africa to mean a land without coldness, a land that doesn't go cold, no snow, no winter, a land without coldness. Africa. So the Romans would say, we are going to a land without snow, a land without coldness, Africa. The Greeks would also use the same word. We are going to the land of the sun, a land where there is always sunshine, Africa. So the etymology of the word Africa is a coinage from the Romans, a coinage from the Phoenicians, a coinage from the Greeks. And then the name Africa comes to mean differently. A land of black people, a land of sunshine, a land without coldness. Did people in Africa name themselves Africa? Never. People in Africa never thought themselves as Africans. Never. People in Africa never thought themselves as a people on a continent. Never. The idea of a continent was introduced by Europeans. Then they said, your continent, that is the continent where you are. And we call it now Africa. People in Africa never thought themselves as Africans. Never. Nothing to do with Alekbun, which is more of an Arabic word. Nothing. They never defined themselves in terms of their skin color, in terms of their geographical setting. They simply looked at themselves as the people. Ubuntu. We are because you are. Those were people in Africa. They never considered skin color. They never considered their setting to define themselves. Who defined Africa and Africans? Foreigners. Coming from wherever they came, from present-day Europe, from Asia, from Middle East, as they call it, they came all the way to our ancestral place and said, these are people with a burnt skin. These are very dark people, Sudan. These are very tall black people. This is a land of sunshine. This is a land without coordinates. Then they call it Africa in different ways. Africa. So there was nothing to do with a Roman general. Instead, the Roman general Scipio was given a name, Africa, from Africa after defeating the Carthaginians. It was not that he gave us his name because it was not his name. He was given that title. The same thing to Leo Africanus, who was a black man and a fighter. He was called Leo, the black man. So the theories that a man gave us a name are wrong now. Actually, the name had been a collective over the years. As people came to this land of black people, a land with sunshine, they could also give it names. A land with sunshine, a land with so many dark people, a land with people of the burnt skin, Africa, and others. Now, that is the story, the origins of the name Africa. From different theories, no single scholar basically agrees on a single source of the meaning of Africa. But what we agree on is that we were never defined. Our ancestors were never known as Africans. Never. They never knew themselves as a people on African continent. Never. The issue of continents was brought in by the Europeans. The issue of naming people according to their location was brought in by the Europeans. It was about them defining us, not us defining ourselves. That should be clear. Dennis, give us the photos. My face should go away, Dennis, and then we look at the full screen, please. Yes, the etymology of Africa. The etymology of Africa. I wish people could take time to look at this map. Morocco, named after the city Marrakech. Tunisia, named after the city Tunis. Algeria, named after the city Algeria. Libya, Greek word to mean Africa. Egypt, from the Greek word Egyptos, that means the Nile. Sudan, from an Arabic word, Balad al-Sudan, which means a country of black people. Eritrea, named after the Red Sea, Latin Mau El Thum. Southern Sudan, named from South plus Arabic Bradal, Sudan, which means a country of blacks. Burkina Faso, local language meaning honest father's house. Mali, named after self-appellation of the Mandike people. Then Mauritania, from the Latin word Moor. Remember the Moors? That's why we got Mauritania, named from the Moors. Western Sahara, named from the west of Sahara. Senegal, named after the local river Senegal. The Gambia, named after local river Badam. Ghana was named after a local king. And of course, Equatorial Guinea, named from a Latin word, equator, Guinea from Baba word. The Babas, Ageno, which means black. Sao Tome, Principe is a Portuguese name for local islands, literally Saint Thomas and Pine. Cote d'Ivoire is a French word to mean Ivory Coast. Liberia from Latin to mean free land. And of course, we go to Kenya from a local word, Kerenyang, which means white mountain. Tanzania, named from the Potomac of the country, named from Tanganyika, and of course, Zanzibar. Malawi, named from Malawi, which means flames. Burundi, named after the Rundi people. Mozambique, named after the Sultan Muka Aboko. Swaziland, named after the local chief Swati land from Germanic land. Madagascar, named after the city of Mogadishu, after a map reading error from Arabic Nokados. Holy. It was just an error to make it Mogadishu. Zimbabwe, from the Bantu Zimba. Zimbabwe, houses of stones. Zimbabwe means houses of stones. Lesotho, named after the Soto people. And of course, Botswana, named after the Swana people. Zambia, named after the Zambezi River. Uganda, named after the Ganda people. Rwanda, named after the Rwanda people. Of course, Congo, named after the Democratic State after the French, named it Republic. Congo, named after Congo River, of course. The Congo then named after Congo River. Gabon, it was the Portuguese, giving it a name Gabo, which means croc. Cameroon, Portuguese name, and named it Kamaru, which means shrimp. And so for Nigeria, named after the River Niger. River Niger from Latin Niger, which means black. Nigeria means black from that river, which means black. Dennis, thank you so much. I will stop here on the map. So Africa itself, Dennis, wait a minute. Dennis, let us go back a bit. Just excuse me, a bit young. Africa itself, if you look at my map, it serves the Latin Africas, describing Carthaginian territories from the earlier Operation Afar, possibly from Phoenician Afar, dust or earth. Very well explained. Of course, Somalia, named after an certain origin of the Somali people. Thank you so much, Dennis. Let us go to others very, very fast. If you can, I can be within the time I wanted to be. 1984, released map of Africa by Randy McKinney and Company, a company named Randy McKinney and a European company made a map for Africa and defined Africa, and the year was 1894. Then next map, please. Next map, please. Yes, you can move from Cape Town to Nairobi by the road. I've given that map there. You can move from South Africa up to East Africa by road. You can see how you can connect that. So I'm trying to show you how Africa was connected, how people in Africa would move within their geographical space, they later called Africa. South Africa, Zambia, Tanzania, Botswana, Malawi, Zimbabwe. You can move through all these areas from Cape Town to Nairobi. You can move. You can see that kind of journey. It is very possible. Then let us go on to another map, please. The road trek through Africa. You can move. Africa is connected by road. So you can move from one point to another. I'm showing you the reason why people within this geographical space would move from one place to another and remain in the same place called Africa later on, because it was easier to move from one place to another. Then let's continue, please. In 1498, Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese sailor, found a sea route directed from Europe to India by going around Africa. You can see that map. Africa was strategically located that one could move from Europe to India by simply going around Africa. So people wonder, why did these people come to Africa? It was easier to move from one point to another by going across Africa. And once they were going across Africa, they realized that Africa had the values, Africa had the wealth, had the richness they wanted. So they came to Africa in that way. Then next map, please. Yes, the kingdom of Axum, Egypt, the kingdom of Axum. What was the kingdom of Axum? We shall be looking at it in our next series. The Axum Empire was one of the most remarkable powers of the ancient world. It was located in the northern part of modern Ethiopia and Eritrea. It once dominated East Africa and parts of Arabia. When we think of any powerful ancient civilization in Africa, only the civilization of Egypt comes to mind. Meanwhile, the Axum civilization was one of the earliest established societies in Africa that had contact with both ancient Europe and Asia. But little is actually known about the kingdom of Axum. Very important. It was between Ethiopia today and Eritrea. It was a very powerful kingdom. Then let us continue. Colonization. What did the colonists do? They said in 1884, 15th of November, 1884, 13 powerful European countries sat and shared Africa like a cake. They sat down and shared Africa like a cake. Then it's going to zoom this map for you. I want to go through it, but you can see which country took which. European countries sit somewhere in Berlin and decide to take our continent piece by piece. They give our continent to themselves. You can see who got many countries. You can see the countries the British took. You can see the countries the Italians took, the French took, the Belgians took, the Germans took, the Portuguese took. They divided our continent into colonies, and we became their colonies, and we became their slaves. In other words, they took over our own continent. The Italians took their own piece, the British took their own piece, the Spaniards took their own piece. They sat there in that conference and they decided to give themselves the powers to take over our land, to take over our continent. That's how they shared it. Then let's continue. The border between Botswana and Zambia is the world's second shortest border, stretching 157 meters across. I wanted to show you this, how Africa is so connected that you can easily cross from one country to another, and Botswana and Zambia is one of that very good example. It's only 157 meters from this country into another country. That's how connected people in Africa are. The Congo, Tanzania, Angola, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, so connected together. Then next, please. Victoria Falls, where I come from, on the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe, on the international border of both countries. Victoria Falls goes through. It's a wide, very beautiful place. Then let us continue. And of course, civilization of Africa, the most civilized, significant civilization which influenced modern African states are these ones now. Look at this map. These are the civilizations that have influenced Africa for generations. One is the Arabic civilization, which is in green. Then there was the Austronesian civilization. There was the Bantu civilization, the Guinean civilization, the Habesha civilization, the Indiki and this civilization, the Nilotic civilization, the Sudan Saharian civilization, and then the Western civilization. Now, people normally tell you, oh, Africans had no civilization. It was the Western civilization. No, they are telling you lies. You can see by that map that there were civilizations before the West brought their own civilization to Africa. In fact, African civilization gave the rest of the world their own civilization. I'll talk about that in the next study. Then let us continue. They came with that toolbox. When they are coming to Africa, the missionaries, they came with a toolbox, having a gun, having a microscope, having a Jesus, having a Bible, and a mirror. They would choose what to do if they wanted to get into your territory. That's how they conquered Africa. The Bible, the gun, the mirror, and of course the perfumes. That's how they conquered Africa. Then let's continue, please. I did not change, I just woke up. It's a philosopher from our Kemetic people that I did not change, I just woke up to reality. Then let's continue. Ubuntu. Africans preach Ubuntu, togetherness. I am because you are. We are because you are. Togetherness. Ubuntu. That is what defines the history of Africa. Then let's continue, please. And we are our ancestors. We are what we are because of our ancestors. Our ancestors' blood is within us. We are what we are because of our ancestry. Then it's very fast and we rush and we continue to conclude this show. We are our parents, relatives, ancestors. Choose partners wisely. Exactly. That's what you normally say. Choose your partners wisely because you are your ancestors. If you get a wrong ancestry, you're in trouble. Many ancient people in Africa thought that our ancestors returned to us through children. But that child you have is your ancestor. Our ancestors returned to us through those children. This is the philosophy which many of our ancestors basically believed in, the art of storytelling, that you sit around the table, not a table, on the ground, in the evening, in the morning, and you tell a story. That was the Africa which we do miss today. And of course, sharing. We eat together, we sit down and share our potatoes, we share our food. Because Africa is about love, is about sharing, is about community. That's the Africa I talk about. That's the Africa I want to continue talking about. The Africa means the Africa of togetherness. Remember, the Africa as a name is a name that was given to us. It was not a name that we chose ourselves. So, yes, today we say we're Africans, fine. Other people have defined us. Now we should redefine ourselves. We are the people of Ubuntu, togetherness. We are because you are. Then thank you so much. It has been a nice program. Use it to educate our people about Africa. And this is episode 1. Look out for episode 2 very soon on here at Humanist TV Africa. Keep it real. See you in the next one.
Tuungane sote na tushereke pamoja ushindi kwa ukombozi wetu. Tujitoe wenyewe, tusimame pamoja kulinda uhuru na umoja wetu. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote tuimbe pamoja, kuenzi shikamano hatima yetu. Tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika. Chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya